And welcome back once again to the PCS Spring Split 2022. Only a couple games left to play here, and coming up right now is going to be FAK Esports taking on J-Team, who returned to the stage after a disappointing loss against PSG Talon to start the day. Hey everybody, I am still Pyrotechnics, he's still Clement, and our sponsors, they haven't changed either. They're CTBC Bank and Caliber. Thank you for making the PCS possible. Now, Clement, FAK Esports, I think they were watching what PSG did earlier on tonight, and I think they have maybe been taking a few notes.
Yeah, it was a really weird game from J-Team because they were up at 6,000 gold, they had a 6-0 lead, but they weren't able to close the deal against PSG. And I think what we have consistently seen from J-Team is that their teamfight coordination around big objectives has just not really been there. We don't see a strong shot-calling presence from this team, and the way that they win seems to be more oriented towards snowballing Kongre and Uniboy. If those two get ahead, then they usually have a great game, everything goes smoothly. But if the game is somewhat even, then they really haven't been able to make a strong impact and get the team together on the same page. I think that's been the main issue. On the other hand, for FAK Esports, I actually feel like they've been up and up. They've showcased so many good things here. We have Pretender going back to some of his assassin roots. I really liked his Syndra game. His Akali game was pretty fun to watch. And also you had Rebirth, the previous support here, also showing up huge on the Nautilus. But they do have K2 playing today, going back to their usual setup here. So, there's a lot of good things coming out from FAK. I think their individual talent has been rising, especially in the mid-jungle.
They've been having a little bit more time to gel, and lest we forget, of course, Eminem earning the MVP for last week. So we'll see if he can continue that level of performance. Now, their opponents, of course, J-Team looking to bounce back after a loss against PSG. Driver, Kongye, Uniboy, Lilvi, and Enzo. I do actually think the bot laners rather are going to have an interesting matchup because we have seen both these players in the PCS for a bit of time. They've always kind of hovered around that like mid-tier to maybe breaking out into like a top 4. Have the opportunity to do it perhaps this split. Lil V definitely loving to play more of those like later game champions. He's really only played like the Jinx and the Aphelios. They've been able to handshake all the time. Whereas Eminem has had a little more variety, even getting his hands on a Zeri for a single game, but also playing the likes of the Caitlyn, the likes of the Ezreal. However, I do expect both these two teams to clash in the bot and probably come up with some pretty interesting 2v2s. But
yeah, we have seen some strategies where people just try to ban out Eminem completely, don't let him on the hyper carries, and that's when you see kind of the Caitlyn come out. We are on patch 12.4, and if you were wondering, Zeri is still busted. Incredibly busted. She's still perma-banned, so I don't expect to see her. That's true. Like there has been a lot of number nerfs. It's just surprising that you can see a champion lose 20% attack speed on ultimate, lose 20% slow on her ultra shock laser, and still be the most pick and ban champion.
It just doesn't matter. Yeah. 100% pick ban. Probably not going to. I mean, it does keep slipping through every once in a while. It is always a possibility. I don't know, given the relative power of these two bot laners, that it's going to likely show up, but we will be comparing the junglers, in fact. Because while Holo has had some up and down performances, I would say, Kongye has been put up big numbers, but has also occasionally struggled to turn those into wins for his team, like we saw earlier on in the night.
Coordination is still a big thing for Kongre on this squad. I feel like he doesn't really link up with the rest of his teammates, but in terms of the early game dueling and just the early game ganking, you can tell from that first blood participation rate has a lot more impact on the game compared to Holo. I feel like Holo has been doing well in team fights, but early game still hasn't been his sort of strong suit, and I think his function in the early game is just trying to get Kurt and getting Pretender through the first 15 minutes when they play these sort of scaling champions. We see like a lot of tanks from Kurt, and we also see a lot of mages coming in from Pretender. So his job is much more about the defensive side of the map rather than the offense, which we get from Kongre.
Yeah, and Holo's definitely no stranger to like setting up those team fights. We saw that a lot from Boom last year as well. And into the picks and bans we go. Frank Esports looking for their 5th win. J-Team looking to close out strong with the 7th. Ooh, Zoe ban, definitely respect on the Uni Boy.
And these two teams do have very different strategies. Like, if you look at the holistic stats, it does seem like both of them are very AD-centric. But if you look at how they actually win games, then it couldn't be more night and day. Frank Esports, they still need Eminem to have a pop-off team fight. They still need to go late. Well, on J-Team's side, their best games have honestly been the Syndra and the Zoe and Uni Boy just snowballing out of control. So it really goes much deeper than the stats would suggest. And I like these bans from Frank Esports. All of them are early game bans just to make sure J-Team have to go and play a slow game alongside with them.
Yeah, certainly done their homework. Xin Zhao, though, as well as the Zarya and the Akali taken off the table. A lot of must bans. Eminem will get his hands on the first pickup, Jinx, as it gets locked in, and that takes it away from Lilvi, who has preferred it. He should handshake the Aphelios, though, no problem. Lilvi has kind of been the J-Team late-game insurance policy across the board anyways.
Definitely expect just, sort of the standard, the Aphelios kind of come through. The big question for me is what Driver is going to do. I think Driver can play fighters, but I don't think he can coordinate split pushing with the rest of the team. That's not a talent that we have seen from him just yet. So I would actually much prefer him just give the sort of counter pick over to Uniboy, let Uniboy to dominate his lane, maybe put Pretender down rather than going for like a straight up fighter. I'd be okay with something like a Graves just to shove the wave in, or the Gwen just to play defensively.
I mean, the Gwen can flex too, right? I mean, that's the other thing is we've seen Kongye look to this champion as well, and as long as he's not frontlining when he needs to have a smite ready at a dragon pit, I think it could be okay. But of course, he's not going to be flexing on it because there's a Hecarim already. So what am I talking about? It's going to be a dragon champion. Yeah,
it happens all the time.
I had my brain in like 3 games ago, man. It's been a night. But that does mean that Kurt gets a chance to flex his Tryndamere skills, which should be a fun game, 1v1.
Kurt is, interestingly enough, I feel like Kurt and Driver are very close to being the same players. They can play fighters, but I'm not sure about their split pushing or flanking. So we'll see what happens in this matchup. Tryndamere technically does get pushed in a little bit by the Gwen earlier on, but later can have an outsized impact. We have seen so many games where Kurt just gets like one auto attack off on the Tryndamere and then just goes back to a side lane. So he definitely needs a stronger voice on the team, and I think that's what we should pay attention to, whether if Kurt can actually stretch the map out and play a real 1-3-1.
Yeah, I think it's remaining to be seen if that's going to work out for them, if it's going to be possible. But with the lock on the Aphelios, the handshake is confirmed. We get into ban phase 2 with bot lanes on both sides, or rather, bot lanes on the Frank Esports side fully filled out and support pool still open. Frank could opt to hit that, but the priority is probably going to be continuing to hammer at Uniboy, I would think, given how strong he is. But for J-Team, they are focusing on the jungle by removing the Diana from the equation.
Yeah, I think this is a really smart move. Orianna is my go-to ban here. Both sides are trying to play with immobile 80 carries, and Orianna just halts that advance so hard. Also combos really well with Hecarim, so great ban by Frank. The Syndra is a ban that, frankly, I'm willing to let through. Syndra does not chase up well with Hecarim, so I think they'll think of something else here. It's interesting to see what they will do. I think they're probably trying to defend against triple dive. I wouldn't mind just banning a Nautilus here.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I was like, do you think the Rise is maybe worth it? And I'm not 100% sure.
Rise is an interesting one. I feel like I'm willing to give over the... Oh, okay, never mind. They banned it. Good call there.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's like the only other champion that I can think of that Uniboy would play that would go for the big dive, and like, in his hands, it's still pretty good. But we'll see. I'm not gonna get excited until it's confirmed. I'm not gonna get excited until it's confirmed. I'm not getting excited, but they're hovering. They're hovering Renata.
I don't think they actually have a great comp for this just yet.
The last second switch up. Yep, I knew it. I knew it all along. It was Leona.
So the thing about Renata is she really isn't an engaged champion. And the reason for that is her ult actually travels super slowly. It travels at 650 speed. So it's barely faster than walking, and it's very difficult to hit people with it. I don't think you'll see Renata being played when the composition is geared toward going forward. Leona here, probably a much better opportunity, much better fit for the team. Meanwhile, on FAK Esports, this is an interesting one from Holo. We did talk about Holo kind of shoring up the early game, but he does shine in late game teamfights, and Viego has been a pick that has allowed him to do so. So FAK Esports right now have a super interesting comp, something that we didn't really expect from them at all, almost coming up with the triple dive, especially if they lock this Vex in.
I think it certainly dovetails well with what they're trying to do, gives them a lot extra AP, and they will lock it in for Pretender. I believe we've only seen one other Vex so far this split in the PCS. I need to go back and check the numbers to confirm that, but this definitely gives them a solid opportunity to try and get into that backline. The question is, who do they look to destroy outside of Lil V if this Syndra gets locked in? I feel like Uniboy is a prime candidate, but he was hovering on something more like the Ahri earlier that would allow a better chase-up. But no, we do get the Syndra for Uniboy, and now there are two pretty juicy targets to get into the back line with.
Yeah, I actually feel like the Syndra is a bit of a trap here for J-Team. She just presents another very juicy target. And, to go over what FAK Esports did here, they kind of flipped the composition. They had the Tahm Kench, but then they switched it over to a triple dive comp with a lot of just offensive power all in. And J-Team, I think they kind of fell for the bait here. Hecarim in this composition doesn't really do as much compared to a purely offensive composition where they're trying to run down the enemy. And if you look at the Syndra, she faces kind of the same issues. She's not going to be able to side lane against Tryndamere in teamfights. She's going to be very susceptible to just the myriad of crowd control that the Vex can throw at you. So I actually feel like FAK actually outdrafted here and forced J-Team into a very defensive posture.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting, and I want to see how it actually affects the lane phase overall, because that mid lane just suddenly got very, very interesting. I think Uniboy, pound for pound, has shown that he is a stronger laner overall than Pretender, but Pretender has been stepping it up a number of occasions. I want to see if he can really take it here to the opposite side, and then, of course, J-Team's bottom lane should be relatively safe in this one. The top side should be reasonably matched, and then if they can get into the later stages of the game, Holo can start to help them pop off. There's a lot of damage on this FAK Esports comp. They're looking to walk away with a win and hand J-Team their second loss in a day. If they could do it, that would certainly make a great argument for this squad's growing potential. They've definitely looked better week over week.
I would love to see some team just step up and break the triarchy of J-Team teams in the top of our bracket.
J-Teams,
kind of
if
ridiculous. You will. Exactly. It's so weird that you break up J-Teams and you get better teams. It's been the case so long. Like, even if you think about G-Rex, it was kind of the same theme. A bunch of academy players from J-Team break off, and they beat the original J-Team.
It's like osmosis, you know, they're just dividing themselves and splitting and moving. Well, that's the wrong biological process, but you know what I'm talking about. Cellular division. Fun fact, I basically almost failed chemistry in college, but we don't talk about that. What we do talk about is League of Legends, because we're on the Rift, Clement, and FAK Esports are looking to shut J-Team out in this day one of week 4.
And what we should be paying attention to the early game, I think, is sort of the dynamic in the mid and jungle here. Uniboy definitely has a stronger lane. His cooldowns are a lot shorter, so I expect him to be able to shove Pretender in. But Holo does have the hard CC, and Pretender does have the hard CC too. So if they want to gank, it would be very easy to execute. That's kind of the tightrope that I think Uniboy has to walk on. He has to pressure his lane, win it, but he also has to dodge out on a lot of ganks, and he does have an inferior jungle in the early game with Hecarim. So we'll see how he is able to balance out that one, and I think if FAK get ahead there, it is so easy to transition that lead into the other lanes. Vex, with her mobility, is kind of disgusting, and the same goes for Viego. If this champion gets snowballed, as we see very often in the LPL, he's still very difficult to keep down.
Yeah. I mean, it's not quite as high a priority as Viego was last year, when we saw him just kind of being like that top-tier jungle pick, always picked up. Now he's a bit more feast or famine, but in Holo's hands, it certainly can be a threatening champion, and we will get underway without any level 1 shenanigans. Definitely want to keep an eye on the mid and see how that one develops with the Vex. Not looking for like a solo kill, for instance, but I do think Uniboy even though this Syndra may not be quite as suited to pair up with what the rest of the team wants to do, in a solo lane situation, could surprise Pretender. We have seen the quick level 6 hit the R button and, see if he can delete somebody happen a couple of times.
Yeah, Syndra is still unrivaled when it comes to lane harassment. She has a very short cooldown on those Dark Spheres and can throw them out over and over again. While on the other hand, I feel like for the Vex, it's a little bit harder. You don't have the same cooldown windows to kind of go through. And as you can see in lane here, your abilities are a little bit easier to dodge. Not in that instance, as Uniboy takes everything to the face. Just trying to prove me wrong.
Easier to dodge doesn't mean guaranteed, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, Vex hitboxes are pretty tricky. You do have a accelerating but a smaller hitbox on her Q, and then a widening hitbox on her E. It's not that easy to dodge if you haven't played against her for a while.
And that's one of the reasons to pick a champion that isn't quite as popular, or at least not as widely played overall, right? I mean, Vex as a champion, obviously, we predicted this fully when we talked about it being a tier 1 pick on our patch 12.04 graphic, but overall, definitely seeing a little bit less of that champion worldwide. Does occasionally make an appearance. We'll see if Pretender can put it to the test, and I'm always excited to see what Vexes can do in team fights, because anytime you get that big dashing ultimate to do the damage, speaking of damage, a little bit of a stun up on the Scout of the Week into the Dark Sphere combination.
Yeah, still very powerful of a trade. The thing about Vex in general is that she has a very long cooldown on her earlier Fear, so it's hard to get crowd control consistently on your opponents compared to the cooldowns from Syndra. Syndra just has a much easier time finding those opportunities. Now, we do have a situation developing where Hecarim is spotted, so Polo could get a chance to find potentially a gank, but Uniboy pops the teleport and instantly covers his lane. So knows very well where the enemy jungler could potentially be and keeps his flank safe.
Yeah, honestly, that's really all Uniboy has to do, right, to start things off. He just wants to be getting out of this lane phase feeling pretty confident in himself, can get the harass down, maybe try to turn it. As we check back into the top lane right now, both of these champions having ways to deny death. Although for Kurt, going to take a little while before he gets to that point. Needs level 6. I do like that they're kind of trying to match the level of pressure that one can deal with the other. But of course, with the Ignite versus the Flash, that's going to be a little bit different as Holo now comes around the side. We are actually watching a trade up in the top side. Kurt ghosts on after the Ignite. A little bit of an oddball trade as Driver chases him away. There might be more to it than that.
Just trying to get that. It's kind of interesting. I feel like Driver is just setting up for a kill a little bit later on. He's like, well, I might as well use it, suppress you in lane, and get a better laning outcome here. So we'll see what he does with that sort of HP lead. Doesn't look like much, actually, so maybe kind of a waste. I do want to mention that his keystone choice is Lethal Tempo, so this is a much stronger team fight and sustained trade one. But we have seen, actually, the Grasp of the Undying work out quite well on the Gwen, just for short trades and getting that burst down.
Look at this, coming in with the gank. Waiting for the play, and he gets the dash in onto Eminem, forcing the flash away. They might have enough damage, and they do. First blood secured by Enzo on the last tick of the Ignite, but they are looking for more as Lil V cleans up K2. Nicely played there from the J-Team bot lane. Not to mention the jungle.
It is so rare to see people make use of the alcove these days. It's almost like a forgotten mechanic coming in from the last split, but that's exactly how you should do it. Wait there for your bot lane to arrive, and the enemy isn't expecting it. The enemy is thinking, oh, you don't have vision down, you're going to play somewhat safe, but ta-da, the jungler comes right out. It's a level 5 Hecarim gank. No one expects that, and they get the beautiful double.
Yeah, that was, in terms of expectations, that ranks maybe just slightly below the Spanish Inquisition. So, Kongye coming up with a level 5. Well played. 2-0 in the kill box down bot side for J-Team as they start to build on a little bit of a healthy lead. And this is another reason it's always fun to watch Kongye's. It doesn't matter what type of champion he's on. He's going to try to get involved a little bit earlier than you might expect. And that's just one of the things that's so fun to watch about him as he's transitioned to a little bit more of a team fighting player and a skirmishing, ganking jungler rather than a full carry jungler like we saw him on Hong Kong Attitude last year.
Yeah, if you think about Kongye's past, he's probably best known for his Gragas play, so that's definitely more into the ganking category. Frank are trying to get something back here. At the very least, I feel like Frank need to make sure J-Team just don't make a mad dash for Herald as soon as it's up. They have a massive advantage in terms of summoners just on low V, so that's definitely up on the cards for J-Team, and Frank are just making sure that as they bounce the wave back, they are not going to run into Kongre, who does have the Onslaught Shadow this time.
He does. K2 could be in trouble himself. Although,
K2, where
he'd rather have the Tom Kench be roaming, but he realizes he might be caught out, and there goes the Onslaught of Shadows and the knockback. K2 is a dead man. In quick succession, a second kill after the first.
I don't know what K2 was doing there.
Neither do
like,
I.
his team has never had vision advantage on that right side brush. Vex has been 24/7 pushed in, and yeah, it was just kind of a weird route to take for K2, unfortunately, and he gets punished rightfully so.
J-Team extend their lead to a little over 2,500 now as Kongye continues to have quite a lot of presence exerted over the map. Should be giving away this blue buff over to Uniboy any second now, and there we go. J-Team off to a pretty solid start. Lilvi and Enzo going to be able to push in if they wanted, rather just going to let the minions do the job, as they have vision control all up and down that side of the river. Also, a few wards in the Herald Pit as it's just about to hit the spawn mark at 8 minutes. And really, J-Team have to be feeling pretty happy with how well controlled this game is.
Yeah, it's going absolutely smoothly for them, 0-3. And we haven't seen any roams from Vex. The greatest power of Vex is that she can reach your bot lane so easily, has over 2,000 range on the Shadow Surge. So you have to keep very close attention to her. But as you can see for Pretender, this has been a very tough lane. He's actually going Dark Seal for just for extra sustain here.
I mean, this is Uniboy diff, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just so good at nailing all of that harass, and now we see why the Syndra was the priority pick, even if it doesn't mesh with, you know, the dive style that the rest of the team seems to want to do. If he can keep the Vex down, that can certainly help, even though that was that seemed to be the game plan here as Herald has started.
And if they can close off the ramp, and maybe Pretender can get a massive ultimate here.
Okay, they're going to turn. Looking for Kurt. Herald going to be reset. They're actually going to let that one happen. And whoa, boy. Dishing out a lot of damage as Lil V just throws out all those chakrams. And now they are straight back on to the Herald. This time it is J-Team in the driver's seat for it.
Oh, that was so painful to watch because Frank actually pushed their way, actually didn't have the lanes in the correct position. They're going to lose a lot of CS for this. If you look across the board, all three of their lanes are down. So they forego CS just to make that Herald play work. They get caught red-handed. And I think unfortunately for Frank, they didn't try to pull the trigger. I feel like if you put yourself in a bad position like that, you almost have to commit. But, you know, they allow J-Team to kind of come down the ramp, and once they do that, you can't fight it anymore. So they're going to pay very dearly for that from the start of the play to the back end of it as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a first brick taken. Shelly should be able to help polish that off with the final charge, and everything's coming up J-Team in this early game, Clement. They have controlled the first 10 minutes of this game about as flawlessly as one could expect, keeping the Vex down about a wave and some change. Uniboy has been able to hold off of both, and they might even get a second Rift Herald charge here. Yeah, with Kongye and Lilvi here, I don't know if Kurt can really defend against this. This is a pretty massive swing for J-Team.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it's almost better to hard commit on that play and try to eke out a couple of kills rather than just full surrendering that play. Because it was a very risky play to start with. If you don't have your lanes pushing and you go for that play, then you are already losing out on CS. You have to secure the Herald, absolutely. And they just didn't go for it.
Oh, straight into one ultimate, not another. Kongye didn't quite have the follow-up damage there as the flash comes out for Pretender, but still, I think you definitely take those trades right now. 2 ultimates burned for the price of 1 and a flash.
Yeah, and Kongye was very nifty on that disengage, didn't allow himself to be tagged down by the knockdown and the fear. When you see the red bar on Vex, that means she can definitely fear you in that situation. Manages to dodge away from the Q, get himself out of dodge. So it ended up just being a straight up, you know, successful trade on the side of J-Team. And I gotta say, this is a little bit disappointing for Frank. They just kind of gave up on their own play, so That's a massive hole they have to climb through now. It's
yeah, you
I
gotta
would
commit.
much rather see them just go all in on that.
I think they're starting. You know, I think this is definitely a classic case of the whole like you know nameplate anxiety, right? You see the other team, you see what they've been able to do, and you kind of start doubting your own ability to execute, and that hesitation can cost you big time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the next point where Frank can really have a say in this game. So far, this Vex has not been able to do anything. But we have talked about the late game. You know, Vex does have very long reach, and with that kill combo with Diego, maybe they can find something.
Oh, well, they got to survive a little bit first. K2 is going to get the swallow up onto Holo, and here's the counter engage. Pretender was looking for something on that Shadow Surge, opts not to take it. Or, excuse me, not the Shadow Surge, the Mistral Bolt. That's, again, even when they look, they are a little bit afraid to kind of like full commit unless they have like that absolute free kill, and the gold deficit just keeps growing right now. Late game certainly seems to be a good strategy to try and play for, but they've got to make it there, right? J-Team, yeah. They are better when they snowball, and, you know, I think this definitely is counting as a snowball, Clement.
I would have to concur. I feel like...
Yeah. Okay, Scout of the Week. That's
the ult.
The dash! And Kongye taken quite low, and Holo will be able to open him up and turn himself into the pony. Maybe they've got an opportunity to make the play here as Enzo just getting clipped all over the place. Double kill comes in, and that has got to be the start of something. Frank Esports needed that play badly. But K2, what are you doing, buddy? Stranded out in no man's land, and that is going to be an ultimate spent by Uniboy. Doesn't quite get the kill as Holo walks right through. A little bit of an odd turn of events, but it doesn't punish Frank.
Yeah, J-Team going a little bit over-aggressive. Kongre actually, I don't even think he ulted in that one. Maybe didn't have his ult then, but just kind of walked to his death there, unfortunately. Just going way too deep. He thought he would be okay with the Mythic already completed here, but wasn't really the case, and he allowed himself to get poked down. The W was down as well, so no way to regain HP, and just, like, okay, that was weird. Like, he actually saw the enemy team coming.
That was a good use of the fear.
True. Yeah, that's kind of a your Kongir freebie of the game. He always gives his opponent like one freebie at least, I feel.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I think he kind of got baited by thinking, like, you know, between him and Uniboy, they'd be able to get the 2v2 no matter what. I don't think he counted on the full turn. But this part's just weird. Like, what was K2 doing there? Like, he's fine, but what? And then Holo? I don't get it.
Neither do I. I think they were just trying to push their limits. Well, hey, no harm, no foul. And at the end of the day,
yeah, I mean, if it works out, it's
5,000.
calculated, right?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. It's this game's kind of a weird game, to be honest. Like 5 kills and a 5,000 gold lead to J-Team. It doesn't feel real. Even after that massive blunder they made, somehow they're still up. I just feel like Frank, you know, you gotta have more grit than that. You have to be willing to really throw down and put all the chips on the table. Or not.
And they just haven't been. Like, look at this. It's just love taps that they were dishing right now as we get a Hextech Rift, and now they push forward. I mean, if you weren't gonna fight the dragon, this is what's gonna happen. All of a sudden, the flankers get flanked themselves. Holo taking a little bit of damage here, and even though Enzo does get rooted down, he's able to tank through it. Kurt coming a little bit late to the party after everyone's going home. Yeah, a little bit odd there. So, a dragon apiece, still a pretty hefty gold lead for J-Team. But Frank have shown they have the ability to fight. They just need to show they have the willingness.
Yeah, I'm kind of perplexed by these situations, to be completely honest. It's not like that wasn't a completely unwinnable fight by Frank Esports. You could say that with this gold deficit, maybe they want to take it slow, but why put yourself in a position where you have to burn a lot of ultimates or even summoners if you're not going to go for that one? But that's the choice they made.
I don't know.
No steal happening, and no fight happening. And you know, I think J-Team are perfectly happy with things going the way they are. Like, it's like, sure, we didn't get any kills, but hey, Frank Esports didn't farm either, so we still hold on to our lead.
And that's all you need sometimes. J-Team, looked like for a second they were going to opt into grabbing the Herald, but they back off of it until, yeah, they get it now. I think they were just checking to make sure it was safe to do. Certainly is the case, as they found a back timing. Teleport, of course, advantage on nobody, because Pretender doesn't quite have it back up, and this Herald should go down fairly quickly. Frank are not going to opt to contest. Scout of the Week, just to dissuade Holo from getting anywhere, and Kongye grabs the eye once again.
And we are going back to just kind of more farming. I think the big problem with Frank right now is they don't have the Tryndamere online. They do want to play this 1-3-1. They counterpick with the Tryndamere against the Gwen specifically for that purpose. But because of the 2 towers that they lost top lane, that isn't happening just yet. And I think that's the reason you see Frank kind of just pulling back and kind of biding their time. Playing without a mythic in top lane at 17 minutes, it's
bad,
really painful.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a massive CS deficit up there, too, between Driver and Kurt, and it's rough. You're going to need to get back and try to defend now. Kurt has no way to get into this, no teleport available. Oh, the stun down, landing on Eminem, and into the Moonlight Vigil. They are going to get root on it. Doesn't even really look like they want the fight. They just kind of wanted to chase him off the tower, and they get that one without a whole lot of resistance. 4-0. I mean, we saw a pretty big opening advantage for J-Team against PSG, and there was still a comeback, but I feel like Frank are just, like, letting this one happen.
Yeah, they are, I still think, biding their time on this one, but a lot of their champions don't actually scale all that well. I think Vex is one of those champions that is definitely better in terms of one-shotting. You can play her as sort of a control mage, but it really requires the enemy team to have a bunch of gap closers. If they have a lot of gap closers, then you get a very low cooldown on your passive. You can constantly knock people down with your abilities. If that's not really the case, then she works much better as an assassin. And I think against J-Team, she's definitely more viable as sort of the assassin burst route, and that will require her to be ahead of Kurt, which currently she isn't. So we'll see how this team fight ends up, but it does look like Frank are just... I think they're just waiting and waiting and waiting until... I don't know when they're waiting till, but the later it goes, probably the better it is for them at this juncture.
Yeah, if they can stop losing ground, if they can stem the bleeding a little bit, that certainly can help us. Even though this gold deficit's not great for them, the longer the game goes, the less it actually matters if they don't let it extend too far around. And, trying to keep up with the items, we see that there's about a half item difference in the bot lane. Lil B having just completed Collector. Kurt, of course, very much more far behind, as this Tryndamere is kind of having a sad day. He's not going to be the Hullbreaker Tryndamere anytime soon, but the team might need him. Try and turn around here as they found an opening onto Enzo, and he flashes looking for Uniboy. There's an opportunity here for Frank Esports, but the rest of the team needs to get in position fast enough. Uniboy is just floating away, but no! Eminem opens up with a big super mega death rocket. Kurt limps away. Enzo is caught in the alcove. This will only be 2, but for Frank, they did manage to secure it. Now, can they get anything else?
I love that sense of bloodlust coming in from Frank Esports. They had Kurt down earlier. They know they have the 5v4, straight engage on the chase. And this is the problem with J-Team. They have a lot of members that cannot escape if they go in these long lanes. Syndra is one of those champions. Little V is one of those champions. You can see Holo and Kurt just hurting them along, forcing them to blow all of their summoners, and still getting the kills at the end. So a great comeback from Frank Esports, and I think they're finding some strengths on their composition. They don't always have to be grouped up. They actually...
Absolutely.
They have a lot of ability to just side lane chase with the Vex. That's a semi-global, and the Tryndamere in long lanes is just so deadly. So I really think J-Team kind of overplayed their hands into this one, and Frank, ironically with their playstyle, they actually goaded J-Team into a false sense of security. This is completely in vision of Frank, by the way, so we should expect a lot of interference.
Really should. Teleport for Pretender is up. I don't know if they feel like they can contest this. This is J-Team kind of calling a bluff here, but they're going to look to sniff in. It's at about 4,500. No, that's the peel away. Oh my goodness. They just lose their nerve. And now they lose their Gwen. Enzo caught in the back of the pit. Baron's still aggroed. Frank Esports, they're coming in and cleaning house right now. They've already got 2 down. There's still a smite threatening for Kongye. So they got to be careful not to give too much up, but they don't want to give away this Baron that has been gifted to them at 21 minutes. If they can get it, Uniboy opens up with his ult, but now the turnaround, no, he dodges away. Meanwhile, K2 going to swallow up Pretender as they look to find a kill here. This was a little bit of an awkward play. I think Kurt might be left for dead. Very strange dance between the two teams, but it's J-Team that lose their 2 members for nothing.
Yeah, that was a weird series of events. No one actually had a scanner ready for that play, so it's kind of weird for me to actually watch that one, but they didn't even scan the Baron pit. They just said, like, oh, we got this one ward down, and, you know, we have a pink ward, that's enough, but they completely missed the ward right in front of the Baron, so... yeah, Frank just gets to pick up 2 kills there, and that's still pretty huge. You know, Eminem is getting to the point where he's dealing legitimate amounts of damage, and I think at this point, Uniboy is not having the same effect that he did in the laning phase. So,
yeah,
this feels like the most J-Team game ever.
Wait, what, didn't you say that about the last one too?
I know. I feel so bad about this, but like J-Team, they always do this. I don't even know how. Like they're just like, okay, this looks like a smooth cruise to victory, and then J-Team always find the way to snatch victory away from the jaws of defeat and crown it atop on themselves. It's just
their opponents, you know, find those unlikely victories against them. I wonder if J-Team just, like, overthinks some of these engages, right?
They do. They definitely do.
It really feels like this is a team that has a bit of a fragile mental.
I feel like they're not willing to roll with the mistakes. That's what happens a lot of times.
That is part of the problem. Kongye smites away the red. Small victories.
Yeah, I feel like J-Team have to be willing to crash land into victories. I feel like that's the best way to put it. Sometimes they try
you
to
can't
go for
hesitate,
clean
right?
Games. Yeah.
That is the issue. Is you can't you know, there's a saying like the perfect is the enemy of the good. You can't try to play super clean and then just fall over flat when you make a mistake. You have to be willing to get down and dirty for sure. For J-Team, if they're going to look to recover this, they still do have the gold advantage. They still do have a massive tower advantage. However, that does mean that the gold is probably going to flip pretty hard if Frank do manage to start cracking open these neutral objectives. The fact that they've been able to get so much done on the map without is actually kind of insane. And the issue right now is you've kind of got kills on the carries. You've got kills on the hyperscaling. The Jinx has 100% KP right now, sitting on 2.5 items. Pretender does get caught, but that's okay. He just says, hey, give me my personal space.
Personal space, pretty much the most usability to get AoE fears down. You attack someone with a Shadow Surge, you go into the enemy backline, and then you just gotta fear everyone. We have seen some times when people... It's usually personal space or the E being used to get that AoE fear effect off, but if you want a quick release, Q actually is a little bit faster than either of those abilities, so we can see which one he kind of goes for in these team fights. That's kind of the most difficult thing about playing with Vex, is just like, how do you aim the geometry of your skill shots to hit the maximum target and at the best speed. So that's where kind of you see a lot of the skill differentiation come out on this champion.
On the flip side, though, like using it on the W, on the personal space, does kind of allow you to just, like, either use it defensively, or if you have already followed on with, like, a Shadow Surge getting into the backline, like, that's kind of a fun, it's almost like a bit of a Nocturne ultimate, right?
Yeah, it does have that sort of a effect here, as we see Kongye losing half his HP just to charge once on Pretender. It's definitely not worth it for him.
Kongye had a good start to this game. Not so much anymore. He's having a bit of a roughie, even on that Turbo Chem tank right now. There is a Dragon on the Rift. This Hex Tech, Frank would love to grab this and put themselves at soul point, but J-Team know that this is a hotly contested objective, and Holo is already at half health. They're going to get flanked right now. A massive turn in there as Uniboy is able to get the shutdown onto Eminem. With an unleashed power, Pretender and Kurt looking to go back in for round number 2. Driver not even sure where to put the needlework here, as Pretender will fall. Oh dear, talk about hesitation. This time it was Frank Esports. Kongye may die, but Kurt will be not long after in following him. A 3-for-2 trade to J-Team.
Still a very important kill there coming in from Kurt. He kills the jungler on the opponent team and ensures that there will be no Baron take from the side of J-Team. However, I don't think that really makes up for Holo's previous mistakes. He took way too much damage just walking toward that Drake. And I think the critical thing is they didn't clear the banana brush. If you're the red side team walking into the river, you have to clear that brush. You're just asking for trouble if you don't clear that one. And J-Team was gifted a very easy engage. Watch this. They don't have any wards on banana. There's a 3-man stack and a Hecarim coming in from that angle. They lose their AD carry straight off the bat. And honestly, Pretender, they really should thank their soul lanes, because Pretender and Kurt prevent a Baron take directly resulting from this one. They kill Kongre, and I'll be honest, Kongre, you didn't need to go in, buddy. That was kind of pointless.
Well, I mean, look, you're asking Kongre not to be aggressive. I think that's a little unreasonable of you, Clement.
That's unreasonable of me. Okay, I guess that's right. I'm sorry, I can't argue with that.
I'm not saying it's the smart move, but it is the Kongre move.
Yeah, that was the difference between a Baron, though. So I definitely think that J-Team could have played that a little bit better on the back end of that one. But, you know, props to Kurt, where props are due. He definitely stalled that one out, and now Frank still have another shot at this.
Certainly the case. I think Hollow's positioning there was allowing J-Team to really get open. He didn't even die in that fight, although the rest of his team just about did. And this next Baron dance is going to be on a little bit more equal footing. I think it's still an advantage for J-Team in terms of gold, but with that Hextech Dragon match, it does mean that there's less of a threat of, you know, Dragon Soul going over anytime soon. This game has honestly swung pretty far back and forth, and here comes Kongre, but he's not going to opt into a play as he was denied just a little bit from the zap, as well as those Flame Chompers being thrown out. Back timers coming in. They have started the Baron quickly before, but it was a disaster for them. And yeah, that time, teams used their Scryer.
I'm just surprised that Frank didn't try to turn on Kongre. Syndra was showing top lane, so they actually had a 5v4, but Frank still played super
Holo?
safe.
He's going to get feared in from the Onslaught of Shadows, just dashes away from the Solar Flare. That tower gets knocked over at last. I still can't believe Frank don't have a single tower this game.
Oh, yeah, they don't. Huh. Well, that just means that they find a winning team fight. They have a lot of gold still left on the map if they want to take it. That was such a weird change of events there. I don't know what to say. I just feel like Frank, they grouped up as a 5-man, and then Syndra is showing top, and they don't take the fight. Like, Kongre is, like, begging them. Kongre's like,
both of these
right
teams,
in front.
Both of these teams are making very questionable decisions that make me think there might be a little bit of tilt involved.
We have said over and over again that these two teams are definitely the most similar teams out of our 10 teams in the PCS. They're very slow, they're grinding macro teams. And sometimes it just feels like they're not willing to kind of grasp destiny in their own hands. They're waiting for those critical mistakes by their enemies. Right. And you know, playing too safe is a risk in it and of itself. That's one of the cardinal sins of League of Legends, is that you cannot play too safe. You have to make calculated risks. If you play not to lose and never to win, then sometimes you just won't win. Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see, I guess. Also, this is exactly what J-Team has been known for. This is such a J-Team game. Frank carrying on the proud tradition. Although, there's 4 J-Teams now. I'm sorry. Oh, no. Well, you know what's crazy is they usually end in 4th place. It's the PCS Team Liquid. Oh, God. It does feel that way. Team Liquid are doing well right now. Boy, nobody wants to make the play. And this is a team fight Tryndamere too, by the way. Moral reminder. He's just sitting sideline. I think it's fine for now, but he does have to move alongside this Gwen. He can't let Gwen have too much of a first move advantage. Ooh, and unfortunately, he actually dipped down towards the south. J-Team get a lucky start on this one, though Kongre is going low. Yeah, and actually Hex flashing over. They wanted to actually bait the fight, but then it gets sniffed out. Yeah, oh boy. I think this is about the time we just kick back for a little bit, Clement. I feel like it's going to be waiting for a mistake. It's going to be a little bit of a time. Yeah. It definitely seems that way. Now, we do have a Drake starting, and it looks like J-Team do not want to trade. They're just going to hard force this, but once again, it's immediately spotted out, and they don't really have... Low, though. Holo. Yeah, Pretender could just get himself into the pit, though. Let's see if he can make it. No. Holo gets stopped! They actually deny the Smite Steal possibility here, and now can they take the fight? Pretender going into the backline. A huge amount of fear as Lil V is deleted off the map. The Baron may have been taken, but will they get out with their lives? Kurt taken low! And I don't know if that is going to be enough. Lil V, Enzo falling down, and Driver to join them. It is a 1-for-3 trade with Pretender off the map as Frank make a beeline for mid lane. But there is a Baron on 2 J-Team members. Yeah, I think critically, though, they're not on Gwen. I think Gwen's the most important one to have it, as she is the split-pushing tool against this team. So overall, I don't even think Frank are too sad about that play. Viego's also getting pretty fed. They get a Drake off the bat of that and a TP. I'll be honest, I don't think that was a great play from J-Team.
No, I think they Baron baited themselves.
Yeah, it could have gone a lot worse. I think that's a key thing to remember right there. If you're stuck in that Baron pit and you have 50 less magic resistance, and and honestly, if Pretender was able to make it into the pit a little bit sooner, this would have been a wipe, a complete wipe on the side of J-Team. Like,
this was a really, really good Shadow Surge, though.
3
into the fear.
fear?
Like, that sets up so much. And you know, the crazy thing is this could have been worse for J-Team.
Yeah.
Had Uniboy not stopped Holo from getting into the back of the pit, that could have easily been a steal.
Yeah, that's why I don't really like the play here. I feel like the plays...
it was a little sus, is what you're saying.
Yeah, at this point, I understand that J-Team do have to take some risks, because, you know, they can't keep the split push game going on forever. But I actually would have much rather them just try to take a head-on fight outside of the Baron pit. They have full vision advantage. Like, they can just turn on side brush rather than full commit to the Baron. So I think right now, at least, they do have the right idea. They have a much stronger position if they're fighting 5v5, and, you know, they don't have that magic resistance debuff. But here we go.
Comes the Vex! Pretender looking to delete Lil V, manages to get it! And let's see if they can finish the rest of the fight as Driver holding off the front line here. Kongye not sure where to dash on the pony. Down goes Driver on the Gwen. Enzo next to fall, and just like dominoes, they drop. As the Jinx gets excited, Eminem running wild here. That may be the end of it. Kongye still looking for an opening, but man, Pretender has just found the burst. It's going to be another Shadow Surge on, but he won't take it this time.
That was absolutely beautiful from Pretender. He catches out Little V. Little V even had a flash and couldn't survive the damage coming in. It's absolutely insane. He goes in 1v, I think it was like a 1v4 in that instance for him. Gets the fear onto everyone, clears the path for the skill shots to just hammer down Little V. We have to watch that again. Absolutely beautiful. He waits on the side, tags with the Shadow Surge, gets the fear that sends the rest of the team forward, isolating Little V for him to get the solo kill down, and that's Reset City for Pretender to go back in again and again. That was just so sick coming in from the mid laner of Frank Esports.
Yeah, this is how you play a Vex. Get into that backline, land the big fear on Doom and Gloom. What an incredible play to deny the push. They even saved their tower. And again, Frank still don't have any towers of their own, but it doesn't seem to matter because they're winning these team fights. And they have 2 reset champions and a burst mage assassin. It feels like there's oh so many threats on this squad.
We did talk about the late game. That Syndra and that Aphelios are going to have a lot harder of a time against these champions. And, you know, we still don't see the GA coming in.
It is almost 35 minutes. I would say we are definitely looking at the late game. GA, as you mentioned, though, is on Eminem and Holo. And yeah, not so much on the J-Team side. Gold disadvantage still, but it just doesn't mean a thing. Holo nearly getting caught there, does get stunned up, but they managed to turn it back on to Kongye, and he cannot do a damn thing. Reset on, and they're looking for more. Grabbing the power of the pony for themselves now into Leona.
Can he find this?
Just short by the Syndra Scout of the Week, and there's not much for them to take on the map, but oh boy, I think J-Team are staring down the barrel of a 0-2 day.
Yeah, and we have to remember, J-Team started this game so strong. Vex did absolutely nothing in the early game. Did not make any roams, was pushed underneath her tower 24/7. They had a 50 CS advantage on Driver, and they didn't translate it into anything.
They still do, by the way.
This is the most J-Team way to lose a game. Just sit on an advantage, hope the enemy makes a mistake, and guess what? This time Pretender came to play. Pretender was biding his time.
Yeah, like it's just been incredible to see the late game Vex start to come to fruition. I think Holo getting those early kills really helped snowball him ahead, got him an earlier Divine Sunderer. Eminem has just been quietly amassing gold and items, managed to pick up a couple of kills. Really just like the fast turns for Frank. I think we're seeing a team that's just in constant evolution because this is a squad that really did come together at the last minute and have have had less chance to practice early on. They've finally gotten themselves into a groove here. And has it been clean always? Absolutely not. But has it been refreshing to see? Certainly the case.
Yeah, Frank Esports, you know, honestly, they lost a lot of those Harold and Drake fights. This time, at least they had the pink ward on top of the banana brush. That's what I've been waiting for, and in goes JT.
Yeah, Enzo trying for the play here, but I don't know if they have enough here. Driver on the front line actually managing to isolate the rest of the squad. Do they have enough damage? Uniboy opens up by taking down K2. They have a lot of damage onto Hollow. He goes gold for just a second. The shutdown onto the Jinx is massive, as JT might have found a fight that they can take and not even lost a single member, plus the Dragon coming through. That is huge here, as J-Team take a chaotic fight all the way to the finish, securing a Dragon and beelining for the Baron.
They've just been killing Frank Esports on these Drakes again and again. Unfortunately for Pretender, he only found the ultimate on Enzo. Not really the target that you want to have on, and they were able to isolate him on the left side. You can see Pretender was basically full health the entire way, didn't get to use most of his abilities, and J-Team, they heard our complaints about them playing way too scared. They're going to finish this one off.
They might just do. Didn't need the Baron after all. Kongye trying to threaten, but the tower's already being shredded down. K2 trying to hold the line, but the Nexus is there. I don't think they have enough left in the tank. This has got to be it, and J-Team snatch victory from the jaws of defeat that they almost snatched from victory.
Oh boy, this game has been... I think this game really showcases the importance about believing in yourself and just pulling a trigger in good circumstances.
I think one good team fight can turn things at that late stage of the game. Yeah, I think Frank, I mean, look at the faces. I think they're a little shocked right now. They had that one, and they just took one ill-advised fight.
It was sort of the same thing again. Like, they weren't able to isolate that ramp. If you're going in on the red side, you have to make sure that Banana is not a ramp that the enemy can take. You have to have terrain denial there. You have to make them pay for every inch of that ramp. But I think Frank just started that Drake way too early. Like, in theory, what they should have done is they needed to push up that ramp. They actually needed hard secured vision on top of it, and made sure that if the enemy was going to take that path, they had to at least split up. That's not what we saw. J-Team were able to just beeline march down that ramp and basically sit on Eminem. So it was kind of a disappointing end to what was a pretty epic battle. We thought we were going to get a tale of a comeback story of Frank Esports finding their footing. At the end, J-Team still win out.
That they do it. J-Team can breathe a sigh of relief after going 1-1 today after a disappointing loss to PSG Talon, and almost another one here against the side of Frank Esports. And for Frank, I think, you know, the ending feels bad, and maybe the beginning a little bit too, but I think this is a team that can be proud of what they've managed to accomplish so far, and they are just growing week over week. Maybe a little bit more confidence from them, maybe just a little bit more willingness to pull the trigger, and the consistency to make sure you have everything warded up before you go in. You clean that up, and I do think we have a team that can seriously be a playoff contender. It's going to take a little while. The good news, they still have a couple of weeks left before the playoffs start. They're still sitting in a decent position, should be able to string more wins together, and this is a team that I think can make a run.
I just want to say, I think against any other team that was given the sort of lead that Frank Esports kind of gave them, Frank Esports wouldn't have a chance. They had a chance because they were boxing with shadows. They were boxing with basically their own brothers in J-Team that kind of made the same mistakes again. The thing about J-Team is their composition didn't have a very clear win condition, but they didn't really need one. Like, with the lead they got, they shouldn't have needed a win condition. You just play 4-1 and the game's over. Like, you just kind of straight push it, and they didn't. They just kind of split up. They gave the enemy opportunities, and this game was just so weird. I'm not sure what to make of this game. I don't feel like J-Team won the game, but again, Frank Esports didn't secure the game either.
It definitely was very weird. The swing kind of came and went. You could see the gold graph, even though like it was pretty much almost always in J-Team's favor, except for like a few blips on the radar in blue. There were points at which it mattered, and there were points at which it absolutely did not. It was a bit of a roller coaster in terms of like what was actually going on, and the teams kind of danced around the issue a lot. You're right in how they are both very similar and a little bit gun shy in trying to make the plays. Also, I think, you know, they had a couple of weaknesses on display, right? Like, you know, Kurt didn't have that great of a game, but by the opposite token, Driver, he had a pretty good one and was our MVP, so much as that we can award it. And I think it was just, I mean, he had a Gwen game. He had a pretty good Gwen game. It just, the whole team was a little bit weird all across the board.
Driver just said enough is enough. He went in 1v3 and he killed Eminem. And that was kind of the end of the story. It's really difficult to fight a Gwen late game when you're all bunched up. She's getting massive stats from all the healing. And, you know, there wasn't a lot of escape coming in. There wasn't a lot of pushback coming in, and they also didn't secure the ramp. So, yeah, I just felt like Driver was finally, you know, he had enough of all that dancing around. He knew that late game, there wasn't actually a very clear win condition on his team. So, I applaud that he's got the kahunas to just go in and say enough is enough.
Sometimes you got to. I mean, he was trying a few times, but finally pulled it off in the end. Now we have one more game after this. It will be CFO taking on Impunity. So we'll be right back after this break.